Hi, welcome to Unit 2, the Real Property and the Law. Um, Unfortunately, with real estate, we're going to deal with the law quite a bit, whether you like it or not. It's a contract-based transaction, and there's lots of laws that impact real estate, whether they're local laws, state laws, federal laws. We're going to be responsible for following them and guiding our customers through this process. So real estate is a market like any other, and real property is the product, and the real estate professional is the salesperson. That's what we're going to learn about. The real estate professional needs to know enough about the product to be able to educate and guide clients and customers, whether they're buyers, sellers, renters, or investors. And the more you're exposed to real estate and the transaction based of the business and you're learning, you're always going to be learning new things about the law and how it impacts what you do in real estate. So just relax, learn, follow, and see what people are teaching you about this process. So in our learning objectives, we're going to discuss the concept of land and ownership rights in real estate property. We're going to distinguish between real and personal property and the differences in transferring ownership and title. And we're going to describe and explain the basic economic and physical characteristics of real estate property. And we'll discuss the limitations of the real estate professional and the law. Remember, you are a realtor, you're not an attorney, so our job is to guide people to the right source so they have professional help. So we talk about land. We talk about that it's defined as the Earth's surface extending downward to the center of the Earth and upward to infinity. So it's kind of like this conal-shaped object that extends down through the Earth to its center and then upward and out. Obviously, we have a hard time getting under the soil to get to a lot of the minerals and things that are there, but we can do it. But when you go up into the airspace, there's a limit to the amount of what we can control and what we can do. We have things called air rights, but we also have something called the Federal Aviation Commission, and they take care of everything that's a certain height above is ruled by the air rights. Real estate is defined as land plus all the human-made improvements to land that are permanently attached and annexed to it. So when we build that house, we attach it to the land. When we pull a mobile trailer up to a house, sometimes it's attached. We might put it on blocks. But think about the mobile trailer that we drive around. We attach for a periodic hookup for electric and sanitation, but otherwise we can detach it in a matter of minutes and take it and drive away. So it becomes personal property. It's not necessarily real estate. It's not attached permanently. Any improvement to land that can be any artificial thing attached on or below the ground, such as a building, fence, water line, or sewer pipe, as well as growing things that are made part of the landscaping, become part of the real property, part of the real estate. Real property is defined as the interests, benefits, and rights that are automatically included in the ownership of real estate. So behind that piece of real estate that you own, there's a bundle of rights that go with it, and we're going to learn a little bit about what are those rights. So this is that conal shape, a picture of what we look at when we talk about the land, the surface rights, the subsurface rights, the air rights. We talk about the physical improvements of land plus the human-made additions that we add to it, and then the bundle of rights. What are our legal rights when we own this piece of real estate? The bundle of rights include our right to possession. We possess it, we get to use it, we get to live on it, we get to rent it, we get to determine how it's possessed or used. Control, we control its use subject to building codes and zoning codes, things like that. We enjoy it, we get to have our friends, family enjoy the use of it. We can exclude people. We can limit people from coming onto our property. We can post no trespassing signs. Also disposition. We should be able to sell our property at any time. So again, the bundle of legal rights, when we think about it, we think about the stick or this bundle of rights. This is a very important aspect of the real estate. You're going to need to know this very much for your real estate exam, that we have this bundle of rights: possession, control, enjoyment, exclusion, and disposition. Title to real property. It's the right to or the ownership of the property, including the owner's bundle of rights, and it's evidence of that ownership is by a deed. So when we transfer the title, we have a deed. When we transfer real property, personal property, think of this like a car, we have a title. It doesn't get registered necessarily. but it is a title. It's a piece of paper that shows that we have ownership and evidence of ownership, and we can use that title to make transfer. But when we transfer the real estate, we actually use a deed, so it's a little more in depth, a little more involved. And our deeds are written by attorneys, by legal people. We talk about the surface, subsurface, and air rights. We have surface rights, the ownership of the rights in a parcel of real estate. They're limited to the surface of the earth. You can see that. Obviously, you can see what's on the surface. The subsurface rights are the rights to natural resources below the earth's surface. So we have ways that we can lease our land to mining companies. We can sell the subsurface rights. You can actually split this land into sandwiches and layers. You can sell the land. You can lease the land. You can sell something below the surface or lease below the surface. You can also do air rights, everything above the surface. Air rights is something that we see in Cincinnati occasionally. We see it a whole lot more in New York, Chicago, inner city areas. Air rights is the rights to use the space above the earth. They may be sold or leased independently, provided the rights have not been limited by law. So when we think about air rights, think about Fort Washington Way, the tunnel into downtown Cincinnati. When you drive through that tunnel, you're actually going under a piece of real estate, and you look above, and there's actually the 4th Street apartments are above it. Those 4th Street apartments are built on air rights, so they don't own the core of the land all the way down. There's still a deed to transfer it, but they basically are built on the air rights because they don't own the surface below. We have a couple other instances in Cincinnati where there's air rights, but it's not often, and it's hard to find. It's not real easy to find that unless you know about it intimately. Water rights, we talk about water rights. We talk about riparian rights. When we talk about riparian rights, it's something you can think about rivers, and they are the riparian rights. Littoral rights are lakes and the ocean surfaces. And we have accretion, erosion, avulsion, and then we also have something called the doctrine of prior appropriation. When we have accretion, erosion, avulsion, streams and the ocean moves and deposits land, deposits silt, deposits soil, so we can have land that has addition, accretion, erosion, because of the natural nature of water, streams move, the beds move because the soil gets eroded. The doctrine of prior appropriation talks about how water rights are prescribed. In the Midwest and east of the Mississippi, if you live next to the river, you basically own the water, or you control the water that came off the river. Out west, as people settled the west, they got something called a license to use the water. So the water may not go to the people that are right next to the stream, but it's licensed to somebody else, and that's called the doctrine of prior appropriation. And that's a lot of what are, when you think about LA and you think about Nevada and the territories out there, and what you hear about water rights and limited use of availability of water, you can think of the doctrine of prior appropriation. Real property versus personal property. Real property is again, that real estate piece. The personal property becomes chattels. It's something that you can remove. When you walk through a house, the personal property that you see in the house would maybe be the light fixtures, the faucets, things that are attached, wired in, or plumbed into the house, become chattels, become part of the real estate. And the best way to think about this is when you're helping your clients and your customers that are trying to buy or sell real estate. If there's something in the house that they do not want included, if they have a light fixture that means something to them, means a lot to them, or something that's hung on the wall permanently, then they should take those things out of the house before they show the house, or make sure that in the contract, when they write the contract, that those things are excluded. It's easier to show the house without those things because people can do a better job of imagining that something else is there. You can already do the substitution. We talk about factory-built housing, again, something that's built in a factory-controlled environment, but once it becomes attached to the land, it becomes the real property. Plants, we have Fructus naturalis. It's this whole piece of how people are farming, and the plants become part of the ground, especially when we look at perennial plants. They grow year after year, come back year after year. And we also have the emblements, which is the Fructus industrialis. That's the efforts that it takes to actually have the crops grow. Classifications of fixtures. A fixture is personal property that has been so attached to land or building that by law becomes part of that real property. So we talk about the playhouse or the fort in the backyard that becomes attached. You pour footers in to attach the playhouse right, or to attach the fence properly. If it's installed right, you'll have those footers. But it can be removed. And once it's removed, the ground can be patched. You may never know it existed before. But when it's a fixture, it's thought of being as permanently attached, and that should go with the real estate. We have legal tests of a fixture. Again, how is it annexed? How is it attached to the real estate? The adaptability of the item to the land's use. Was it made specially for that piece of land or for that building or that fixture for that house? Or can it be taken off and used somewhere else very easily? And if it's taken out, what gets put in its place? The relationship of the parties. How was something installed? What was the thought behind it? What was, again, the intention of placing the item on the land or in the building? Was it specifically designed for that building? And then, obviously, that's the agreement of the parties. This is part of the contract law that we write when we sell that real estate. What goes with that piece of real estate? How's it done? When you're in the classroom, you look up in the ceiling and you see the audio-visual equipment. The audio-visual equipment is attached to the building. It's wired in through speakers, wired in so that the projector works and things like that. When the buildings are sold, very often those things are sold with the building. You'll get a bill of sale. It'll list all the fixtures that go with the sale that are really considered personal property, not part of the real estate. Again, that's part of the agreement of the parties when the contract is negotiated. Trade fixtures are usually owned and installed by a tenant for the tenant's use, and they may be attached to a building so that they appear to be fixtures, but they're removable. And very often when we lease retail real estate, especially, we have trade fixtures. The tenant puts their cases in the floor. They might attach them so they don't fall over. They hang things on the walls. When the landlord makes the space ready for the tenant, we consider that a white box. We have white walls, white ceiling, the floor, the concrete floor, and the tenant attaches everything. But when the tenant moves out, we expect them to take their fixtures with them. And we can charge them if they don't take their fixtures, the trade fixtures, with them. But often in the commercial real estate world, when tenants leave, if they leave their cases and things like that, we leave them in the space until the next tenant comes in. We want to see if the next tenant can use them, if there's value for the next tenant. Otherwise, we destroy them, we remove them, and we might charge the tenant for removing them if the tenant doesn't remove them on their own. Characteristics of real property. We have economic characteristics. We have something called scarcity. It is limited. There's a scarce amount of real estate. Actually, it's getting less and less all the time because we have erosion from the oceans. We have improvements to real estate, what's done to it, the permanence of investment, and then the area preference. It's something called situs. And that's the determination why no two pieces are truly identical, and the fact that one sits on a different lot than another. Two identical houses built by the same developer builder, because they sit on different lots, they become unique, and they have something called situs. The physical characteristics of real estate, again, immobile. We can pick up that house and take it, but we can't pick up that lot and take it. Indestructibility. It's thought that land is indestructible. When we look at appraising land, we actually separate the land from the real estate, from the house, from the building on it, and we give it a separate assignment to a piece of land. When we look at insurance, we do the same thing. We give a separate assignment to the value of the land. We don't buy property insurance for replacement of the land. We do for the replacement or the repair of the building on the land, but not for the land itself. It's a separate value. So it's got to be indestructible, like I said, unless there's a sinkhole, but you can build it back up with a lot of structural work and engineering. And then, obviously, real estate is very unique. Every parcel, every piece of real estate is unique. Laws that affect real estate. Contract law is the biggest thing, the most often thing that you'll see, because that's what we're dealing in real estate. In order to be deemed an actual real estate transaction for sale of real estate in Ohio and most states, if you're going to sell it, there is a written document. It's contract law. We have general property law. Every state has their own unique property laws, and the real estate about the license law is also unique each state. They're very similar from state to state, but each law has their own license law. Agency law, how we work under somebody, for somebody, the fiduciary relationship that we have with our clients and our customers. And then we also have federal, state, and local laws and regulations, consumer protectionism, environmental laws, tax laws, land use laws, zoning, building codes, things like that that impact how the real estate is done, how the business is done, how something is built or developed. And that is it for Chapter 2. If you have questions, please look through the textbook or drop a note to me. Thank you.